Hello, everybody. This is Brian Hunt, and welcome to another episode of Risk On, Risk Off. Today is March 8th, first week of March, and this is episode number 5 of our podcast, or video cast, however you want to describe it. It's great to have you back. You know, obviously what we do here is try to talk about a lot of aspects with respects to risk as it applies primarily to the construction and real estate industry, but we talk about other areas as well. But today I want to talk about respects to sort of in the world of construction as far as kind of paying it forward in the sense that how do you try to bring new ideas or solutions or help those who are going to come after you sort of improve the quality of life, not only for the jobs and making more safety, but also helping individuals kind of learn and improve their job skills and improve their careers. And I think, as we all know, the world of construction can be very antiquated in the sense it's very much an old school kind of mentality. And I've been doing this for 20 years where I need to change, and adapting to new methodology and technologies have been slow. But I think obviously we've seen in the past couple of years with the pandemic and supply chain issues, labor shortages, the industry's had to sort of be dragged screaming and kicking to try to think about new ways to come out with new solutions to deal with this, the changes that are occurring. Because here in North Texas and throughout the Texas Triangle, if you're involved, you well know it's busy as all hell. There's still plenty of projects online, even rates have come up, and there's still issues of trying to find enough labor. And if you have labor, how do you train them? Or making sure you produce these talents so they don't leave you, but you keep them in the house. And to that point, I've got the great opportunity and welcome the chance to bring Sir Matt Graves on to the show. Matt is a seasoned veteran of the construction world here in Texas. And we'll talk about his career. But what I really liked about wanting to bring Matt on is I've gotten to see and follow Matt over the years, or say past year, in the sense that because Matt has been very instrumental in adapting social media to try to bring forth the gospel and try to improve things in the world of construction. So at this time is my great opportunity to introduce you to Matt Graves. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me. This will be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, Matt, we'll talk a bit about your career a bit. And I love the fact you've got the Construction Yeti right there over your shoulder, which we're going to talk about as well as here. But since you're not too much different in age from me, one kind of like to start each episode is that there's an old game called "Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego?" So where in the world is Matt Graves today?
I'm in Angleton, Texas, down south of Houston.
And Matt, is that where you're from originally, or grew up in that area?
No, I'm from Midland originally. Well,
Okay.
I kind of bounced. I was born in Lubbock, kind of bounced around Texas. When I was in 5th and 6th grade, a couple years in Oklahoma, and then from 7th grade through high school, kind of settled in Midland.
Okay, very good. And so obviously we want to talk about your career, Matt, but let's just kind of talk about how you got to where you are today. So you grew up in West Texas, and obviously Lubbock is in the area, and Texas Tech is in the area. So was your intent to go to Texas Tech, or what happened?
Yeah, so I all the way through high school. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do coming out of high school. So all the way through high school, I kind of figured I'd go to Texas Tech. And I worked for my dad kind of all the summers of high school. He owns a business in Lubbock, and they do like underground fiber installation, communications installation. And so I was basically 16 years old running the shovel on a potholing crew, so working with the backhoe guy in the hot alleys of Lubbock. And my dad kind of said, you can kind of keep doing this your whole life, or you might want to go get an education. And so I was like, maybe I want to go to college. Still didn't know what I wanted to do. And then one summer, him and his partner bought a house, a kind of rundown house to flip. And so we spent all summer kind of remodeling the house and tiling it and just kind of updating it and re-roofing it and a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. And so after that summer, I thought I wanted to be a custom home builder for some reason.
Okay.
And I don't know. I had some buddies that went to A&M, and I went down to a football game and kind of fell into that like everyone does.
Okay.
I did civil engineering because for some reason when I was 18 years old, I thought civil engineering was the path to be a custom home builder.
All right.
And then I got halfway through engineering school and was like, man, I do not want to be an engineer. But I was kind of already halfway through, right?
Yeah.
And so I realized your last year and a half, you can specialize. And so, you can specialize in structures or geotech or transportation or, all the civil engineering specialties. And one of them was construction project management. I was like, I kind of funneled that direction.
Okay.
And I was able to graduate not too late. I had to, restart majors and that sort of thing. So kind of fell into the construction project management. And I don't know how I got through all that, but here I am.
So when you first came out of school, what was your first job?
So when I first got out of school, I actually graduated in 2010. A lot of buddies actually went another year because it was kind of coming out of the recession, and so it was hard to find work.
Yeah.
So it was hard to find anything in 2010, especially for somebody fresh out of school who didn't know anything, right? And so I got a job working for a real small niche security barrier contractor. We were doing crash-rated products, crash-rated fencing, crash-rated, the pop-up bollards and barriers and those sort of things you see, out in front of federal buildings, courthouses, anything high security type stuff. Everything we did was crash-rated. But what we did do was a lot of federal projects because we did a bunch of military bases, we did FBI buildings, we did federal courthouses, that sort of stuff. So I really got a dose of federal contracting early, and so it was an exciting industry doing all those products, but then really got a heavy dose of what the federal contracting world's like.
Very good. And so when you first jumped into the actual world of construction, what was the thing that maybe you first learned that it wasn't in the book, so they didn't teach it at A&M?
Man, I mean, just everything.
Let's narrow it down a little bit.
I mean, I say that kind of sarcastically, but right, you kind of get out of school, and you get out of school, you don't know anything. You don't really know how the construction management process works, at least kind of through what I was doing. You don't really. I remember they was like, "Hey, put together this submittal." I was like, "I don't even know what a submittal means." Can you write an RFI? I was like, I don't even know what RFI, what? Like, it just, just the basics. And, maybe because I took, through the civil engineering route to construction project management, if I'd have done, actual construction management degree, may have been a little bit more. But I've talked to people too that were construction management majors or construction science majors, those sort of things. And everyone kind of has the same, like, you get out and you don't really know how the real world works.
Yeah.
And so, we got basics of scheduling, basics of plan reading, basics of all those things. But when you're talking about kind of project management processes and stuff, it's all foreign. It's almost on the job training.
Yeah. So that's a good point. So a lot of on the job training. And so and we'll lead into this as far as what you're doing with Construction Yeti. But did you feel at the time, and again, Great Recession, I'm hiring, but Texas is starting to percolate. Did you feel there was enough resources or materials available to people like you to learn the job or do better at the job? Or how do you feel like, as far as, were you in that position? Did you feel like there was enough infrastructure, for lack of a better term, to support someone like you trying to develop your career?
I think there was on a very basic level. Okay. So when I first got out, I'd be sitting in meetings, and if you're doing federal work, they're got a million acronyms for everything they do, right? And every department you talk to, if you talk to GSA, they got acronyms. You talk to the Army Corps, they got acronyms. You talk to NAFAC, they got acronyms. Plus, what the hell's an RFI? And just basic stuff like that. So I would sit in meetings and, just listen to meetings or whatever. And I'd take my notebook paper and down the side, every word I heard that I didn't know, I would just write it down. And then after the meeting, I'd sneak off to my desk and go Google everything, and just to try to figure out what people were talking about and what these acronyms mean and all this sort of stuff. So I'd say, yeah, there was, to some degree, Google and YouTube a little bit, kind of helping with those sort of things. But once you got above the kind of the bare bones definition, defining what a submittal is, there probably wasn't much outside of that.
So obviously, kind of fast forward a little bit. You're out of school a couple of years now. Things are starting to get a little interesting here in Texas, as far as the Texas Triangle, let's say. And then you, at some point, you would spend some time at the Porter Company as a project manager. What was sort of that next step of your career, as far as what you were seeing or taking on, that was maybe kind of helping to sort of build your career in this industry?
Well, I had a lot of, I kind of built the foundations of what construction management is and what, kind of what the processes are for project management, kind of my first company. And then I went over to the Porter Company, and they're a mechanical and plumbing subcontractor. So I learned that whole trade, right? I kind of learned the MEP, learned how to, I was doing more civil type work before. So I kind of learned, how a building comes together, kind of all those pieces and parts, right? And how, as a subcontractor, how we play, especially mechanical and plumbing. Those are important trades, right? How they play an important part in kind of the overall structure and kind of the coordination of all the trades. So that was all pretty eye-opening to get that experience.
Very good. So then, you made the change from there, and roughly at that time, looks like you created. If I look at your history here, about 3 years ago, you came up with Construction Yeti. And first of all, we talked about this. So how did the name Construction Yeti come
So in 2020, January 2020, I started a website, a blog called ConstructionYeti.com. And I guess it was imposter syndrome or something like that. So like, I didn't put my name anywhere on there. Like I created it. And my idea was like, again, you go Google something. And if it's above, like, what is the definition of X, Y, or Z? To get a little bit more insight, there wasn't a lot of good resources out there. It send you end up on a Reddit forum or something. You're trying to wade through what's real and what's BS, and it's hard to really see. Everyone's equal on something like a Reddit or some other forum like that. It's hard to tell authority or really who knows what they're talking about and who's just blowing smoke, right? Yeah. So the idea was to basically create a platform, to basically a blog and that sort of thing, to kind of help anything above basic definitions. So that's where the idea came from, and I had Construction Yeti as sort of pseudo name because I just didn't want my name on it. I guess it was imposter syndrome. Like, who am I and why does anybody care what I think? But I guess you're asking where the Yeti came from.
Where the Yeti come from.
So I played rugby through college, and I went over and spent one season. It was our summer break, right? Because opposite hemispheres of New Zealand. So I went over to New Zealand and played a season down there. And a buddy from college, me and him went. And for some reason in 2009, I thought it'd be cool to have a mullet. It was more ironic, the mullets were cool in the 90s and they're cool today, but they definitely weren't cool in 2009.
It's business in the front and party in the back, man.
I was trying to live it. And so I did that. And one of the team managers down there, he, whatever reason, he started calling me Yeti. And it's, it's something like rugby. Everyone has a nickname. So it's stuck. And then when I came back to Texas, my buddy that went with me came back to A&M, and of course he had to spread the word when we got back here. So anybody who sort of knows me through the rugby community, which is a pretty tight-knit group, kind of in the Texas area, everybody knows me as the Yeti. So it's
that's fantastic.
All because of a stupid haircut.
Yeah. So let's talk about the evolution of your blog. So obviously you said you started with a blog, but as you've done this over the years, but now you branched out, and so now is it strictly on Substack? Is how you started doing this newsletter?
Pretty much. So it started in January 2020, and then in March of 2020, COVID hit and basically shut everything down. Yeah. So at that point, I had like 10 or 12 articles. Just kind of with all the drama going on in the world, I kind of lost interest with it. And plus, I was on a project at the time where it was a community college. And so basically, they sent everybody home. And we were having to work on an existing community college. So it was an opportunity for us to kind of kick it into overdrive, right? Because instead of having to work around people, we could just kind of just get after it. Because we didn't know if everyone was going to be gone for a month or 6 months. Like, nobody knew. So basically, the website just basically took a back seat. And then, playing the SEO game is kind of what I was doing too, kind of writing articles on Google. Well, in last year in 22, I started kind of looking at it again. I was like, man, I'm still getting a lot of traffic to this. Like, people are coming and looking at these articles, and I only had about 10 or 12 or something on there.
Yeah.
But one thing I didn't like about kind of doing the blog and that sort of stuff is you didn't really create a community. You'd write it, right? You just got to be on Google, and maybe somebody Google something and they find your link and they take you there. But so I saw some people doing these newsletters. Like, this would be kind of cool. Mm-hmm. And plus, they kind of get the, kind of that dopamine hit too, right? You're getting the instant feedback, which you don't get with Google because you write something, you wait 6 months to see if Google even likes your article.
Yeah.
And so you're writing something, and hopefully somebody likes it or reads it 6 months from now. So anyway, one day I decided, hey, I'm going to write a newsletter. And I signed up on Substack and sent out, I think I put a post on LinkedIn. It was like, hey guys, I'm going to go do this. And I didn't know if people would laugh at me or subscribe, or I didn't know what the hell was going to happen. So the immediate response was pretty good though.
So right now, fast forward, you're on Substack. How many subscribers do you have right now?
About 635 or so.
Very good. I'm one of them. I just subscribed.
Yeah.
So what is the process? Is it you do it currently weekly? Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's kind of evolved. I've been doing it for, I think I've sent out week 38. So I send it out every week. I just sent out last week was week 38. So I started last June. So we've been running about 9 months or so. But yeah, it sends out every Saturday morning. There's about 4 or 5 topics. Try to keep it consistent. Usually it's like some sort of musing, or I'm going to teach you something, or maybe it's something I learned. It's called Construction Curiosities. It's kind of underneath the Construction Yeti brand, but the title of the newsletter is Construction Curiosities, because usually it's just like whatever I was curious about. If I'm Googling something, I'm always looking something up. Maybe I learned something this week. Maybe I heard something and I'm like, oh man, I should share this, right? So usually something like that. Usually maybe there's an article I found that week. I've got a meme, some sort of stupid construction base dad joke level meme that I put in there. I try to make it fun. I've got, I subscribe to newsletters, and a lot of them are dry and boring and almost like reading a textbook, and you can't read halfway through. It's just a block of text. So I break it up with like emojis and GIFs and memes and jokes and try to make it halfway entertaining. So
yeah, no, I've come to, you and I connected, and I've subscribed to Substack, and we talked about this earlier. I do find I'll find like how you do it, I like your style. It's kind of quick, quippy, kind of breaking down into sections. It's very digestible, but you're also providing them information. Have there been certain topics that you cover that you seem more well received by your audience than others, or picked up more traffic?
Usually, you get a lot more traffic whenever I do an interview with somebody, kind of spotlight somebody, especially if they've got a bunch of followers. I kind of pull those people into. But I've really enjoyed that. That's actually evolved into a full-blown podcast now. Me and somebody I've met through sort of all this, we started having a couple conversations and said, hey man, we share a lot of the same thoughts on the industry. We both kind of shared this desire to kind of give back to the next generation and want to help out, because we both kind of came up and kind of had to kind of self-teach ourselves things. And so it's sort of evolved. We were trying to figure out what something to do. And I was like, man, I've done a couple of these I was just calling them video Q&As on the newsletter, which was essentially what we're doing right here. And I just record it like on Microsoft Teams and record it and put it on YouTube and put the link into the newsletter and send it out. And, people kept calling it a podcast. I was like, well, that's not really a podcast, but yeah. So then one day we said, the hell with it. Let's just do a podcast. And so we've started that now. And we just sent out last Tuesday, episode 5. So it's growing now too.
Yeah. So let's talk about the podcast. So because I think, people like-minded sort of attract each other, because I think you and I have sort of evolved in different ways of how we've come to do this. Mm-hmm. So you and I were chatting about this. So doing the podcast, how did that sort of come about? And you mentioned reference earlier, but were you been thinking about it for a while? Was it sort of organic? What's been sort of like your issues you had to overcome to get this done? Because obviously, as I think I've told you, don't let good be the enemy. Don't let perfection be the enemy of the good. And you just got to jump in and do it sometimes.
So I've always sort of been struggled with paralysis by analysis. Where I'll get an idea and I'll build out the plan to the nth degree. I'll never execute the plan, but I've got the perfect plan. And that's always kind of been my struggle, kind of really through my career and stuff like that. And, a lot of people have told me that. I'm like, man, you just got to just do it. You think too much. And so finally, when I started, especially with the newsletter, I had this idea to do this newsletter. I was like, maybe it fails, maybe it goes, who knows? So I just started it, right? And then I started doing a couple written Q&As, because it was a written newsletter, right? So I say, hey Brian, do you want to do a Q&A? And I'd send you 4 or 5 questions, and you just type in your answers, and I basically copy paste that, put it in the newsletter, and it was that. And I was talking to one person, and they said, man, I don't have time to do that. That took me 2 hours, type it all up, make sure it's all formatted right and look good. And can you just ask me the questions on a video? And it took me 10 minutes, right, to answer it just on conversation. I was like, I guess I never thought about that, but sure. So we did one and just put that out there, and people started liking it. And the quality sucked. I didn't edit it. I didn't know what I was doing. It was just Microsoft Teams, and I got it, just threw it on there. And so that was kind of the first one. And then I did another one, and every time I learned a little something else, and a little something else, and a little something else. And then we started the podcast, and even the first podcast was awful. And I'm learning how to do a little bit of video editing and that sort of things. And I make it live. We have a live audience too. Okay. So it makes it gives me the excuse. I don't have to go edit it too much. It's live. You're going to watch the live thing. So I don't have to make it perfect.
Yeah. I'm curious, when you're live, do you get client the interaction from the crowd, or would you bring them into the conversation, or are they sort of listening?
It depends on the week. So we don't stream like this. Ours, we were doing it a little bit differently, where kind of a premium membership of the kind of the Construction Yeti. I'm calling it the Construction Yeti crew. It's kind of a premium paid membership you kind of get a couple of benefits. And one of the extra benefits is you get access to be live at the podcast recording, which means you get to ask questions of the guests. And there's either a chat box on the side, kind of like they have, on these things, where you can write, if you're shy, you can write in your question like that. But also there's a feature, we do ours through Riverside, and there's a feature where you can basically do a call in. It can be like a live call in show. So you can click the button, call in, and basically I can pull you up, and then it can be like, me, Brian, and Joe can come up on screen. He can join the conversation, ask his questions, and so it depends on the week. We also allow our guests to kind of invite a few people too, just to, any of their supporters and that sort of thing.
Great.
And so,
perfect. Well, obviously, with our live audience right now on LinkedIn Live, you go to the right-hand corner, you can see the add comment section. So if you have any questions or you want to direct to Matt, please let me know. I'll read those to Matt. So Matt, obviously you got a full-time job. You are a project manager for a firm down in Houston, correct? Mm-hmm. So tell me about your balance as far as your work and doing this, which I would also kind of argue is supportive of your job because you're dealing with the construction market. But how do you chop up your day, and how do you find time to put together the newsletter or the week and put together the podcast? How does that kind of work?
So it's been do like either in the morning, kind of before work, I'll get up and kind of do stuff. Or in the evening, a lot of time I got little kids. After my boys go to bed, I'll play on it a little bit. I try not to do it all in one big block, although it goes out Saturday mornings, and there's been some when I've had a real busy week. Friday night at midnight, I'm still typing away and writing it up because oh man, I got to hit publish in the morning, and I had a busy week and I couldn't, whatever was going on in those evenings. Just finding time, a little bit of time throughout the day. This is my lunch, noon to 1, and just while I'm eating a sandwich in my job trailer, I'll just write something, or I'm, a lot of times I'm sharing what I find too. So if I, some article I read, and I'll just kind of start saving those, and I can go pull from the archive and throw them in.
So with your subscribers, I'm curious. You mentioned your young Substack, and you've grown to 650, I think you said. What sort of interaction or feedback you get from your subscribers today? What's been sort of the feedback you've got? Obviously, you had success and you're growing the crowd. What is sort of the direct input or feedback you get from your subscribers?
A lot of people think it's it's informational, right? A lot, there's a time when I did a series like 4 in a row, and I really need to get back on this sort of model where I was just sharing, these are the different types of insurances that you might have, on a general project, right? What is general liability? And it was just a real short kind of layman's term. It wasn't like reading a dictionary, right? And I did project types, and I did what are bonds? What is a PMP bond? And just kind of real quick. And so a lot of people are like, man, I've always heard, people that were subscribing but may not be dealing with that. I've always heard that term, but I never really thought to go look it up. And it's really kind of, I like that. A lot of people, like the memes. A lot of people comment, they like the GIFs, and just because it makes it not dry. But I've got a lot of good positive feedback from people.
Very good. So obviously, you've been adapting and embracing content marketing in order to get to build your brand. So you have Substack as your vehicle to get the descriptions out. And then when you do that, are you posting notices like links to the article to Twitter, or are you circling posting back to LinkedIn? And how do you sort of leverage all the different platforms to get the word out?
Yeah, so mostly LinkedIn's really sort of built it. There's a way through Substack where you can link it to Twitter. I don't play around Twitter enough to really I don't really have any followers, so it just goes off into the void. But at least I just kind of, what's up, Alex? Alex is awesome.
Now, it's a classic example. I tell people, I had the privilege of working a little construction before I joined and got to the brokerage world, and on the backside was the carrier world. But I tell people insurance and construction are very similar. Big industry. Everybody knows each other. And don't be a jerk. Your reputation's going to precede you.
Man, that's so true. I was thinking, when I first started off, you think even in Houston, right? Houston's massive. How many people are here? Yeah. It's a tiny industry. Everybody knows everybody.
It's totally true. So as we were saying, so the platforms that we work with, because for me, kind of you and I have kind of come from different angles. I've been using LinkedIn for a number of years. When it first came around, and I was just building as a kind of build my resume kind of thing. It wasn't, I guess, say to the past 4 years ago that I got into the more being out there and talking to the market, and meeting people, networking. And I use it as at least at a base to start with. And I'd write articles there's a function on LinkedIn you can write an article, but when I did it, it seemed like it nowhere near got the sort of traction I thought, or the views based on the typical post. And then one day I noticed LinkedIn said, create a newsletter. Oh, okay. So I figured I'll take that, and I created a newsletter. And the interesting thing about that is I think I've tried this. When LinkedIn does a newsletter, you create it, it immediately shoots out the invitation to the entire network, but people have to actively subscribe to your LinkedIn. And for me, I've been grateful in the sense I've been doing this maybe about a year now. And I had a pretty sizable base. I'm up to like say 1,400 active subscribers on my newsletter. But then it's been sort of like an evolution of everything else, where I started doing a weekly YouTube video. Well, I started doing a weekly video, 60 seconds of risk, which is a little longer, but that's fine. And I was trying to do that on the video, and I take a video and upload it to LinkedIn, and then the difficulty is like it wasn't quite working. Yeah. I get glitchy sometimes, and my wife kept like, well, YouTube is built for uploading it on your phone. Okay. So I created a YouTube channel for 60 seconds of risk, but then I will link those back into LinkedIn. So people see it on LinkedIn, then it goes to YouTube. And then now that I finished on LinkedIn, I guess a couple months ago, I thought, wait a minute, LinkedIn Live, what does that mean? And did a little research and found out there's a way to do a streaming live session on this on LinkedIn. So for me, it's been just trying to leverage all the sort of the platforms. And as you evolve in this, new tools pop up, and you incorporate the tools and what you're trying to do to get the message out. So yeah, I'm kind of like you, like, you get a full-time job and you're trying to figure out your times to do this, but it's almost like a labor of love. It's like I kind of, it can be a time consuming, but I also don't look forward to actually the writing process.
It's kind of fun though, because I mean, it's never enough for me, I guess, too, because I created a newsletter and then evolved into a couple video interviews, and the video interviews evolved into editing video interviews, and then evolved to a podcast. And now in the podcast, I'm pulling out, you see other people do it, right? They'll have a long form podcast of an hour like ours is. And I'll go pull like 60-second clips and edit them, and then distribute those on like YouTube Shorts and Instagram and TikTok, and just kind of just keep trying to spread the message out that way. Sure. But yeah, I never even really use LinkedIn. I've had probably an account for, I don't even know, a decade or whatever. But it was just for a long time, it was just an online resume, right? You would go update it every 4 years when you got a new job, and you just put your new job there, and you forget your password and log in 4 years again when you switch jobs again. And so for me, that's all LinkedIn was until probably the last couple of years ago.
Yeah, and so I'm curious though, from that, like, if you're having people in the industry who might be watching this, or we're going to see this later on YouTube, what is your perspective with respects to individuals in the industry in building a brand? Because like I would argue, like say from like my position, I'm sort of outward client facing, trying to win business, and hopefully people think I know what I'm doing. I get the insurance for a construction project, so I'm trying to build my brand. But I think in this modern age, I guess, it's with people that having the ability to get in front of other people easily, bypass media or news channels or newspapers, you can get access to the market, to the masses larger. We all have a sort of a vested interest in having a brand, right, or reputation. I think content marketing can go a long way. But what would you advise as far as like people like in the industry who they don't have no desire to be business development or sales, but hey, they want to advance their career or get recognized by their current employer or future employer. What would you advise as far as embracing content marketing?
Man, I would say start immediately. It's something I never really put a lot of thought into. Like, for whatever reason, like, I'd listen to Gary Vaynerchuk and those type of guys forever, right? And I'd always start a brand, put post out there, and personal brand, all those sort of things they say. And I kind of roll my eyes and say, yeah, I get it. When I'm looking for a job, I'll do it. But like, when I started this newsletter, I kind of decided I'm going to do the newsletter, right? Well, you got to sort of advertise it. So that's when I really went hard on LinkedIn. It was really kind of self-serving more than anything, right? Like, I'm trying to like build a network, to build a personal brand, to serve this newsletter and this sort of thing. And I really didn't realize it. I was just, I guess, naive, but like the connections and the networking that came along with that, like I'd have conversations with people that, say 12 months ago, I thought were like way out of my league, and they wouldn't take my phone call. But just because I've like sort of built a personal brand, and like I put myself out there, and like people were like interested to talk to me. And so it's opened those doors too, where I've just met so many people, learned from so many awesome people just kind of in the last 9 months, that even if you're not looking for a job, you can go to a networking event, right? And you may get to know one or two people at this networking event. Yeah. That happens once a week, once a month, or whatever it is. And you're really still restricted to whoever shows up, right? And so the internet's, it's cliche to say, but the internet's made the world such a small place.
Yeah.
Like I can write a post on LinkedIn and, it'll get 10,000 views from all over the world. The podcast we're doing, I was just looking at it just a minute ago. There's been 19 people from 19 different countries have listened to the podcast. Like that blows my mind.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And
so I'm curious, where is your podcast? What platforms is it available for people if they want to find it?
It's hosted on Substack. So any subscribers to the newsletter also gets the email. It goes live on Tuesday mornings now. I kind of split the two and made it standalone. So Tuesday mornings, if you're subscribed to the newsletter /podcast, you'll get the email. So that's where it's hosted. It's all there. But it's also the video goes on YouTube. So if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, Construction Yeti YouTube channel, all the videos are there. The audio, I rip the audio and it goes on all the audio platforms. I try to find all the big ones. So Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Audible. It's if you are listening to a podcast platform that's not there, let me know because I want to get it there. I'm trying to get them all.
Awesome. So obviously, Matt, it's like anything else is incremental. You baby steps, you move, to the next level. So if you think about where Construction Yeti is, what are some of the next things you want to start doing?
Trying to find ways to just kind of keep giving quality value back to kind of the next generation of construction professionals. I know it's really a very big goal, and I don't really know what it is, but I'm always trying to get feedback from people and like, what'd you like, what'd you not like? Maybe it evolves into kind of more of a consultancy type thing in the future. Who knows? I'm trying to keep I'm not trying to box myself in, which is kind of a problem because it's like I can do everything, but eventually I'm gonna have to kind of narrow it down. But we'll see.
All right, very good. Well, Matt, I want to be cognizant of your time here, but we had a great conversation. But before we end, let's just sort of get off the business cycle. Let's talk a little personally. So, I think you married. You married, have a couple of kids. Is that what you said? Yeah.
Married. I've been married for over 10 years now. Got a couple. We got 5-year-old twin boys.
Oh Lord, that keeps you busy, huh?
Yes, I don't know how maybe this is an escape from my life. I don't know.
So obviously you got twin boys and they keep you busy. So, but when you're not working, what have you done?
I'm coaching baseball. Before COVID happened and kind of shut everything down, I haven't really got back into it, but I was still playing rugby for men's clubs. Okay. I like to hunt and fish and anything outdoors. But now that, boys are 5 years old and they're got their own life, kind of time for my stuff kind of does it. I don't have a lot of time left for that. So.
And so when you guys are traveling, where are your go-to spots?
Me and my wife, when we like to go we used to live in Austin a lot. So Fredericksburg was our getaway.
There you go.
I guess people outside of Texas, if you're in Texas, you know where Fredericksburg is, but if you're not in Texas, Fredericksburg's it's got really popular over like the last decade.
Yeah.
It's kind of a wine place. There's a lot of vineyards around, bed and breakfast, like a main street where it's a German community, originally a German community, so a lot of good German food.
Yeah.
That was kind of our go-to place for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you kind of with your career, you probably have is your influencer. You become an influencer. So who influences you as far as if you're, what authors, podcasts, books do you find like you've been sort of helped you along this journey?
There's been a lot of people that really kind of helped me out that I'd say like maybe like construction LinkedIn famous, like guys like Jesse Hernandez, Chris with Island Elevator, Alex. She's awesome. There's a lot of people like that. I've just found I'm only down 1 million people. There's a lot of people that kind of just like supported what I've been doing through that. But I guess like the more famous people, like I like listening to Gary Vaynerchuk. He got like a lot of real insights in like the marketing world and that sort of stuff. I like everything he puts out. I like Alex Hormozy. I've just started listening to him lately.
Okay.
He does a lot of stuff on sales and marketing, and I feel like now you say I'm an influencer, but I feel like more I'm a marketer because I'm trying to market what I'm doing. So it's been fun. It's just been a fun game. So like people like Simon Sinek, any sort of leadership or marketing at this point, and I find super interesting.
Very good. Well, and Matt, just so you know, so obviously your overarching organization is called Construction Yeti. Your newsletter is through Substack, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. And then obviously your podcast is on all the you can get it through your Substack subscription, but also it's on Apple, Spotify, the rest, your standard platforms, correct?
Yep. So you can find the newsletter through Substack. So if you go to constructionyeti.substack.com, if you sign up there, you'll get everything I'm doing. You'll get the newsletter, you get the podcast. I'll make sure you get emails every week, a couple times a week, and get all that. The podcast is called, I'm doing it in conjunction with a guy, Kyle Grandell. He's a owner's rep. He owns this little small company, Dell Management, up in Minnesota.
Okay.
But it's called the CM Mentors Podcast, because we're really trying to talk about things that are to help the next generation of construction managers. So with the live audience, people come in, ask questions. We have big, guests. We have a different topic every week, so we talk about what that guest is sort of an expert in. Yeah. We've talked about stuff like energy management and burnout. We had Shelley Peterson. We talked about building a personal brand. We talked. The one that released this week was with Felipe Engineer Manriquez. He's a Scrum. He literally wrote the book on construction Scrum. Oh. It was so awesome. Next week we're going to be releasing one with Jason Schroeder. He's a lean construction guru. Yep. So it's been fun.
Fantastic. Well, Matt, once again, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for all your efforts to try to give it back to the next generation. And I look forward to seeing your future newsletters and podcasts as well. So,
thanks, Brian. We'll have to get you onto the podcast and talk all about insurance.
Deal. I'll make that happen. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, like I said, Matt Graves, I think, is very unique in a sense way. He's being very much a podcaster, influencer, trying to give it back to the next generation and leveraging social media to build his brand, as we say. So I think there's a lot there that a lot of us can sort of pick up and run with ourselves as we think about how we're trying to build our brand and establish our career and move it forward. Again, this has been Brian Hunt of Risk On, Risk Off. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If there are certain topics or individuals you'd like to see on this show, please let me know. Or if you think you'd like to be on it, please reach out to me. You can also find these episodes on my YouTube channel, 60 Seconds of Risk. And as always, guys, thanks for your time and effort. Talk to you soon.